So can we talk about the form in which the story takes place for a second? Because one of the things I tried to juxtapose in that quote from that book was specifically about the object versus the written word. Now, of course, some of the things that you're best known for as the producer of Fight Club, which is a cult classic at this point in time, and part of that story is so well ingrained because I won't say every time, but I'm going to say maybe 60% of the time that if I have mentioned to someone you and your connection to Fight Club, say, do you know the movie Fight Club? And the auto response 60% of the time, of course, is no, or there is no Fight Club. They which is, of course, one of the main lines, the first two rules of Fight Club, and so it's so ingrained within the culture, that part of the story, that it literally changed the way that we think, and there's an auto response to that. Now that's moving pictures. There's the craft object. There's the written word. And if it's okay, I'm gonna. These are probably way too long for this format, but I decided when I do this podcast, I'm going to do basically kind of whatever the hell I want, and we'll see where it goes. And hope that there's people who have patience for my long-winded ways sometimes. But there's this great quote from Walter Cronkite when he wrote the introduction of a book called Photographs That Changed the World that I have on my bookshelf. And Walter Cronkite, of course, being the famous American television newscaster, he writes here that television, which I have served for almost 40 years, is a remarkable high impact medium. That instantaneously transmission of pictures and sound is close to a miracle. If this miracle has a flaw, it is its lack of one important feature, and this is contemplation, which motion
Mm.
defies. A good still photograph studied by an inquiring mind frequently yields more information than a mile of moving images. Without contemplation, comprehension sometimes suffers. And so when you are presenting your medium in a moving picture, the written word, a still shot, look at a meme, which are so popular these days, right? People sending
Mhm.
out pictures of quotes, still images of quotes is very popular to do at this point. Um, or a sculptural object, tensioned object, which is what a guitar is often, in our case. Um, what do you think about utilizing these different mechanisms for storytelling? And do you think about that? Do you think about whether this particular bit of information is better in a still image, a moving image, written on a page, or ever even an object?
Well, see, there's an economic angle to that, which is if I'm making my money as a film producer, no, I'm not going to think about any other alternative. Because you don't want to give the studio any out. They've got to say, yes, this is a movie. Because, Fight Club was a book,
Yeah.
which which then became the movie. And, it could have been a TV series. For me, it was always, how do you reach the widest audience? I started in Australia in theatre.
Hmm.
And the idea of putting on a show that maybe 60, 80 people saw in a little theater a night just didn't cut it for me. I thought all that work, and I love theater, don't get me wrong, but all that work for very little possibility of reaching an audience.
Sure.
Now we've moved from films to memes and social media. The democratization of media is what we're witnessing now, where anybody with an idea, or even not even an idea, anybody with a camera, a phone, can tell a story. So, I think there are some stories that are better done as a poem than they are as a film, and there are, you know, literary masterpieces that have been turned into terrible movies. So, I think some stories fit
Hmm.
certain firms better, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when I read the manuscript for Fight Club, because it hadn't been published yet, I'm reading this very funny but bleak story. Because in the
Hmm.
book, the characters are burning themselves with cigarettes, all the stuff that any studio is going to object to. So I'm thinking,
Mm.
oh, this is better left as a book. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see people burning themselves with cigarettes. Um,
Mhm.
and then, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell people the twist. If you
Yeah.
want to mute, yeah, I'm going to tell you what happens. So you're reading the book, and suddenly you realize these two characters that you thought were separate characters are the same person. And it was like, it was like a trapdoor opened, and I fell through the trapdoor into this deeper well of understanding. And everything I'd read, I had to reassess. And it was
Mhm.
electrifying. I thought, this is a movie. That's when I knew it was a movie. Now, in developing the film, all the stuff like the burning of cigarettes on each other's skin, we left that out. That got cut. So I started to
Mhm.
shape it because an adaptation is not just filming what was. You have to interpret it, shift it to fit this new medium. And um, including, we came up with a whole new ending to the story that was not in the book.
Mhm.
And I remember Chuck Palahniuk, the author, when he read our script, said, "Oh, you understood what I was trying to do more than I did." And
Mhm.
because we sort of wrap things up in a way by blowing up the credit card companies, that was the actual destruction of the world. Because if we all refused to pay our debts, capitalism would collapse. And you
Mhm.
mentioned my economics degree earlier. That came from studying debt, global
Yep.
debt. If we all said, let's not pay, that's the end of the system. Now, in the book,
Mhm.
the character blows up a building to fall onto the Natural History Museum as a symbolic destruction of the world. Well,
Mhm.
we went a step further and made it actual. But by blowing up the credit card companies, nobody was harmed and everybody believed they were set free. If I was told I didn't have to pay my debts, I'd be elated.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a long-winded way or a tangential way of saying that the medium does determine how the story is told. So we change things from the book to the film.
Mhm.
Now, could Fight Club have been done as a photograph? No. Um, could it have been done as a sculpture? Yes, I'm sure somebody's been inspired to do that. But to an audience of what? I want the ideas in Fight Club are so uh, exciting and profound to me that you have to break yourself apart to evolve. You have to
Mhm.
face your fears. Stop living your IKEA furniture and set yourself free. Basically,
Mhm. Mhm.
I thought it was so fundamental to my journey and to most people's journey. If you're honest, we all have Tyler Durden telling us don't do that, take that risk, try this, right? And we all silence
Mhm.
that. And in Fight Club, he wasn't silenced; he came out. Um,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that was a way of saying that the ideas for me in the film were so important; it had to reach a wide audience. Somebody suggested, "Why don't you do it as a Broadway musical?" And I thought, "Oh my God, the economics of Broadway musicals is, the people who come to New York for the weekend and they go and
Yeah.
see Cats and they see right. They're not going to come and see a
Yes,
musical on
yes.
Fight Club." So
Yeah, yeah.
um, but if you did an underground theatre production of it, I'm sure it could be, galvanizing, but your reach is going to be quite small.
Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.